Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really taking a swing at a big idea, one of those assumptions we all kind of live with in the modern economy, which is that, getting a higher income automatically means a better life. More money, more happiness, right?
Right. But is that actually true?
Exactly. So our mission today is to dig into the sources and tackle this really fundamental question for you. What is the real purpose of money? And maybe more importantly, why is getting control over your own time possibly the most valuable kind of wealth there is? We want to look past the luxury stuff.
And let's just state our main idea right up front. The evidence suggests the highest form of wealth isn't really about the dollars or the assets you can list. It's more about autonomy. It's about being able to wake up and genuinely say, okay, I get to decide what I do today. The best thing money buys. Independence.
I really like that framing because happiness, well, it's complicated, right? Everyone defines it differently. But that desire for control, the ability to choose what you do, when, where, who with, that feels pretty universal. That seems to be what really drives well-being for most people.
It really is the common thread.
Yeah.
And the science actually backs this up quite strongly.
Okay, so let's get into that science. There's some key research here.
Yeah, foundational work, actually, from psychologist Angus Campbell at the University of Michigan. Back in the 80s, he wrote a book, The Sense of Well-Being in America. And what was interesting was that he kind of broke from the mold. Psychology then often focused on what was wrong with people, disorders. Campbell asked, what actually predicts positive feelings? What makes people feel good about their lives?
Okay, so what did he look at? The usual suspects: salary, job title.
Exactly. He tried sorting people by all those objective things we think should matter. Income, level of education, where they lived, how prestigious their job title sounded on paper. And the surprising thing, he found those objective conditions, well, they weren't very reliable predictors of who actually reported being happy.
Wait, hang on. So the things we often spend decades chasing, the bigger salary, the corner office, the fancy zip code, those weren't the things that consistently made people happy.
That's what he found. It's pretty counterintuitive, isn't it? What did predict positive feelings much more reliably was having a strong personal sense of controlling your own life. That feeling of autonomy, of self-determination, that was the single broadest lifestyle factor, more than any specific objective condition, that correlated with happiness. Control was key.
Wow. Okay, that completely reframes why you'd want to save money, doesn't it? If control is the ultimate goal, then money's biggest value isn't buying, I don't know, a faster car. It's buying your time back. It's about building up that independence, maybe little by little, just by having some capital you haven't spent yet.
Exactly. And we can think about this very practically. It's not some abstract goal for the distant future. Wealth building in this sense is a series of steps toward more autonomy right now. So, like if you're just scraping by paycheck to paycheck, having even a small cushion means you can take a couple of days off if you're actually sick without that gut-wrenching fear about making rent. That alone is a huge mental shift.
That makes sense. That's a tangible piece of control right there.
Then maybe you build up a bit more wealth. Now, if you lose your job, you don't have to immediately grab the very first offer that comes along, even if it's a terrible fit. You have the time, you have the control to wait for something better, something that actually uses your goals or aligns with what you want to do.
Right. You have options.
And then you get to what people often talk about, maybe saving up 6 months worth of emergency expenses. Once you hit that kind of threshold, your whole relationship with your job can change.
How so?
Because you're less dependent. You know that if your boss asks you to do something unreasonable, or if the work environment becomes toxic, well, you have options. You're not completely terrified because you know you won't be financially ruined if you need to take some time off or even walk away.
So the
Like the video if you enjoyed it, and make sure to subscribe for more podcasts.
money acts like a buffer, a psychological safety net against being forced into things.
Precisely. It is, in many ways, the ultimate luxury. Forget the fancy watch. Using money to buy back your time and your options, that provides a level of well-being that very few material goods can compete with.
Yeah.
This is what allows someone to maybe take a slightly lower-paying job if it means, say, a much shorter commute or more flexible hours, or to handle a sudden medical bill without it completely derailing their life. The real aim isn't just retirement someday. It's getting to a point where you can retire when you choose to, not just when you physically have to, because your assets give you that genuine, undeniable independence.
I actually lived the opposite of this very vividly early in my career. I was definitely chasing the money back then. I landed this really competitive investment banking internship. The pay, even for an intern, was huge. I was absolutely convinced that money was going to make me happy.
Okay.
And I figured out on day one why they pay investment bankers so much. It felt like a premium for just handing over complete control of your life, especially your time. The hours were, honestly, they felt brutal, completely dictated. Getting home before midnight felt like a win. There was this saying in the office, I remember it clearly. If you don't come to work on Saturday, don't bother coming back on Sunday. Just expect it.
Oh, that's intense, even if the work itself was interesting.
Some parts were, yeah, it was intellectually stimulating at times, but the total lack of control over my own schedule made it feel miserable. It just ground me down.
Yeah, and there's actually a psychological term for that feeling. Reactance.
Reactance, what that?
It's basically this idea that when people feel like a choice has been taken away from them, when something is imposed on them, they instinctively resist or resent it, even if it's something they might normally enjoy doing.
Right.
So you could love the problem-solving aspect of that banking job, but because every single minute felt mandated, dictated by someone else's schedule, your brain reacts negatively. It feels like drudgery, like something you hate, purely because you didn't choose it. The control factor overrides everything else.
That makes so much sense. It explains why doing something you theoretically like, but on someone else's timetable, can feel just as bad as doing something you genuinely dislike. And this kind of circles back to that idea of defining enough, right? If control is the real prize, how much money do you actually need to get it?
That's a great question.
There is this great story from the entrepreneur Derek Sivers. He talks about a friend asking him, when did you get rich? And the friend assumed it must have been years later when Sivers sold his company, CD Baby, for millions.
Right, the big exit. That's what most people would think.
But Sivers corrected him. He said, no, the moment he felt truly free, truly rich, in the sense of having control, was when he was 22 years old.
22? What happened then?
He was working this pretty basic job in Manhattan, making maybe $20,000 a year, but he lived really simply, kept his expenses incredibly low, and over about 2 years, he managed to save up $12,000.
Okay, $12,000, not millions.
Exactly. And that $12,000 for him was the magic number. It was enough. He immediately quit his job to pursue being a full-time musician. He knew that $12,000 could cover his bare-bones living costs for quite a while, meaning he only needed to earn a little bit from music gigs each month to get by. He said that was when he became free.
Interesting.
He even said that selling his company later for millions didn't fundamentally change his day-to-day freedom in the same way. That was just, more money in the bank. The real shift, the gaining of control, happened with that first $12,000 at age 22.
That sounds almost unbelievable, doesn't it? That 12K could provide the same kind of psychological freedom as millions. But I think Seaver's point is about the marginal utility of control. That first chunk of savings bought him the most critical thing.
Yeah.
The ability to choose his path, to walk away from the job he didn't want. The millions later added security, sure, but the core autonomy, he already had it.
So let's take that personal insight and zoom out. What does this mean for us as a society, especially in wealthy nations? The U.S., for example, is objectively the richest nation in history. If you look at median family income, adjusted for inflation, it's more than doubled since the 1950s. We went from around $29,000 back then to over $62,000 in 2019.
And we've definitely used that wealth to buy more stuff, bigger houses. The median home size exploded, right? Went from under 1,000 square feet in the 50s to almost 2,500 square feet more recently. We have amazing technology, cheap travel, better cars, you name it.
Okay, so richer, bigger houses, better stuff.
Oh, yeah.
We should be happier, right?
Yeah. Well, that's the paradox. There's actually very little evidence to suggest that the average American is happier today than they were back in the 1950s, despite being significantly wealthier.
And the stress levels, that data is pretty shocking. There was a Gallup poll in 2019.
Yeah, I know the one. It found something like 55% of Americans reported feeling a lot of stress the previous day. 55%.
Yeah, and global average was?
Much lower, around 35%. So we have way more material wealth, but we're also way more stressed out than the average person globally.
Yeah.
Why? What's going on? If we have more money, why does it feel like we've given up control?
It seems tied to how work itself has changed.
Absolutely. The nature of labor is fundamentally different. Think about, say, John D. Rockefeller back in the 1870s, running Standard Oil. His job wasn't physical labor. He wasn't drilling wells or hauling barrels. His job was to think, to strategize, make decisions, manage risk. That was his work.
And back then, That kind of thinking job was really rare, wasn't it? Most people worked with their hands.
Yes, exactly. In 1870, something like 85% of jobs were in agriculture, crafts, manufacturing, tangible work. You went to the farm or the factory, you used physical tools, and when your shift ended, you clocked out. You left the tools there. Your mind, generally, was your own outside of work hours.
Okay. Contrast that with today.
Today, it's flipped. Around 38% of jobs are now classified as managers, officials, and professionals. These are largely decision-making, knowledge-based roles. Another 41% are in service industries, which also often require constant mental engagement, problem-solving, dealing with people. So way more of us now have jobs that look more like Rockefellers, where the primary output comes from our brains, than like a typical 1950s factory worker.
And that's the hidden cost, right? The cost of the knowledge economy. If your job is making widgets on an assembly line, the tools, the wrench, the machine, they stay at the factory when you go home.
Right.
But if your job is designing software or managing a team or developing a marketing plan, the main tool is your head. And your head obviously comes home with you. It never really switches off.
Precisely. So even if your official work hours might technically be shorter than they were in, say, 1950, the work feels like it's 204/7. Because the thinking doesn't stop. You're mulling over that work problem during your commute while you're trying to eat dinner with your family. When you wake up at 3 a.m. worrying about a deadline,
Yeah.
your brain is always on the clock.
There was a great quote about this. Trying to remember who said it. Derek Thompson.
Yes, Derek Thompson, he put it brilliantly. He said something like, the computer age freed the tools of productivity from the physical office building, so the modern factory isn't a place anymore.
It is the day itself.
That's the one.
Ah.
The modern factory is the day itself. That constant mental churn, that lack of true downtime, that's the unseen price we're paying. It might be canceling out the happiness gains we should be getting from higher incomes and bigger houses. We've essentially traded control over our time and mental space for more money.
Okay, so let's try to tie all this together. What's the ultimate takeaway? Maybe look at the wisdom of people who've lived the longest.
That's a great place to look. There's a gerontologist, Carl Pilmer, who did exactly this. He interviewed about 1,000 elderly Americans for his book, 30 Lessons for Living. He asked them, basically, what did you learn about living a good, fulfilling life?
And these are people who've seen it all, right? Economic booms, busts, societal changes.
Exactly. Decades of lived experience. And their answers powerfully echo everything we've been discussing. Pilmer reported something quite striking. Out of 1,000 people reflecting on their entire lives, not one single person said that happiness requires working harder just to make more money to buy more things.
Not one.
Not one. Nobody said you needed to be wealthier than your neighbors. Nobody advised choosing your career based purely on its future earning potential over everything else.
There's incredibly powerful. 1,000 people looking back, and none of them prioritized chasing wealth for its own sake. So what did they value? What were the lessons?
It came down to a few core things. Meaningful connections, so quality friendships. Feeling like you're part of something bigger than yourself. And, very importantly, spending quality time, specifically unstructured time, with their children. The consensus on that was overwhelming.
Unstructured time, not just like scheduled activities.
Right, just being present. Pilmer actually quoted them directly on this. He wrote, your kids don't want your money anywhere near as much as they want you. Specifically, they want you with them.
Wow. That really hits home. It just brings us right back to the beginning, doesn't it? The highest dividend money pays isn't the stuff, it's time, it's autonomy. It's the freedom to choose to be present, to be with the people you care about, rather than being constantly pulled away by demands you can't refuse because you need the paycheck.
That's the core message from all these different angles. To recap this deep dive, the real purpose of money, perhaps its highest purpose, is to buy your independence, to reduce the external forces that dictate how you spend your life. Whether it's Campbell's research showing control is key to well-being, Seaver's story illustrating freedom at 12K, or Pilmer's elders prioritizing presence over possessions, it all points to the same conclusion. Having control over your time is the ultimate driver of a well-lived life.
So let's leave you with a final thought, especially considering this shift towards the 24/7 knowledge worker, where the factory is the day itself. Take a hard look at your own situation, your job, your career path, and ask yourself this honestly. As you climb that ladder, are you genuinely gaining wealth in the form of greater control and freedom? Or are you perhaps just trading a higher salary for a deeper surrender of your time, your autonomy, and maybe even your mental peace? That's the crucial calculation in today's world.